So imposter syndrome is super, super common in high achievers, super, super common in medicine. In fact, it's so common that really we're all imposters, and therefore none of us are imposters. And I wanted to offer that recently I was doing a retreat for a big healthcare system, and there was a gentleman there who'd been practicing for 38 years, and he had imposter syndrome. He said that was his number one expensive thought pattern. And so realizing that in medicine, we are trained to think we are an imposter. We are trained to think that we don't know enough to keep us studying more and harder. We are trained to think that we don't belong so that we can adapt and evolve along the way of the training process. And it keeps us hypervigilant, keeps us learning, which has some value, but it's also exhausting and leads to burnout. So what I would offer is that everyone doing new things and stretching themselves has some kind of imposter syndrome. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It also doesn't mean it's needed. It's really a habit. It's when things are unfamiliar, we feel like an imposter. And so if you do feel like an imposter, it doesn't mean you are. It just means you're doing something unfamiliar. The other point I wanted to make about imposter syndrome is that you don't have to convince yourself, I am enough. You don't have to convince yourself you're completely qualified. There are lots of other softer and more accessible strategies to move beyond it and around it. You can strengthen your confidence and your belief in yourself without saying, I'm not, I'm amazing at this. In fact, you could just decide you're fine, you're okay, you're acceptable. Usually we have to make a step-by-step shift here. So a couple of tips here: reaching out, connecting, asking for support. I often say vulnerable is valuable, and I think that that is incredibly true here. Other people will be able to see why you're not an imposter, even when your brain is offering that you are. So colleagues, friends, family, fellows, when you realize that everybody's feeling like an imposter, it's very helpful. And they can often give you tips when you are feeling that just incredible stress and tension. Reminding yourself what your objective skills, knowledge, strengths, and experience are. Remind yourself of how many years you've been training to be a physician, how many years of training you have already, how many times how many nights you've spent in a hospital, for example. All of those things will help you move beyond imposter syndrome. And then realizing, I love this, that the opportunity that you're doing right now was offered to you. So if you're giving a talk, it was offered to you. Someone believed in you. So borrow their belief in you. If you are a fellow, you were chosen as a fellow. So someone believed in you. Someone decided you could do this. And so borrow their belief in you. If you got into medical school, somebody accepted you. So borrow their belief in you. If you are doing a job, someone hired you for that job. Borrow their belief in you. We tend to tell ourselves why they made a mistake all the time. And it's really just unhelpful. They more than likely did not make a mistake, is the other thing I would say. You don't have to say, I'm the perfect person for the job, but they more than likely did not make a mistake when they chose to hire you. And so borrowing someone else's belief in you is one of the most valuable tools, especially when you're doing something new. The other thing that I find very helpful is reminding yourself that imposter syndrome is a habit. It's just something that everybody does, as I mentioned above. And so when it comes up for me, I'm like, oh, look, there's my imposter syndrome habit. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not an imposter. And one of the mindfulness tools that I actually forgot to mention at the beginning is curiosity. And so just invoke a tiny bit of a question. Maybe I'm not. What if I'm not an imposter? What if I actually belonged here? And so just inviting good questions can be such an amazing tool. And then realizing that imposter syndrome is a transition issue, and we all transition all the time. And so realizing that imposter syndrome literally comes with transitions, and so not to worry about it when you are transitioning, and when you maybe are transitioning to being attending or transitioning to a new job, that you will very likely feel like an imposter. Again, it's the unfamiliar. And in medicine, we think that unfamiliar or feeling uncomfortable is a problem. It portends some disastrous outcome. But if you're adjusting to a new thing, unfamiliar and uncomfortable does not portend a disastrous outcome. And so just realizing that it's very likely unfamiliar. And that's the problem. Another way around imposter syndrome that I like is focusing on your uniqueness and what you have to offer. Very often we think, well, I'm different. Either I'm a woman of color, I come from this certain background or a different country, or my family is different than these people. And we notice how we're different and how we don't belong. And in fact, medical training trained us very much to do that, very specifically, to notice what in the pattern is different. And so we notice that about ourselves. And yet how I like to think about it is we're all unique. We're all bringing a different lens, a different perspective, and a different experience. And every single one of those is needed in medicine. Our patients all bring a different perspective, for example. So it's just allowing yourself to be unique and think about the different viewpoint. There's a thought in self-compassion about offering a different door. You are a different door to a different path for people to learn about something in a different way, and just realizing that that's who you are. And then connecting with your why, remembering why you are here, why you are doing this, and that, of course, it feels uncomfortable, but there's a reason to move through the discomfort. And if you didn't do it and you weren't pursuing your why, you would also feel uncomfortable. So again, the discomfort is not a problem. You are here for a specific purpose and you have a why. And so connecting to that why. The last piece I wanted to talk about in terms of imposter syndrome is confidence. And so many people come to work with me hoping for confidence. And confidence is the end product. It's not the beginning product. So we want to have confidence as we show up for something that we haven't done. We think that confidence, then we know we can do it. Really, we have to show up committed to doing something. And then we have to have the courage to show up and do it. And then we practice it and we become capable, and then we become confident. And so you shouldn't feel confident at the outset. And for me, that has totally changed my relationship with confidence. It's okay to just have the commitment and to have the courage to show up. And then you get a long time to become capable. And so this is where I like to not use the word confidence and to use the words calm and grounded. Those work for me. Strong, flexible, learning, growing, evolving, any of those things rather than confident. You don't have to be not confident. You don't have to not believe in yourself. You can just believe that it's a process, trust the process, and that in the end, you'll feel confident. But in the beginning, you very likely don't feel confident. And then honestly, once you feel confident, because most of you are high achievers, you'll move on to the next thing and then you won't feel confident. And so then we think we have a confidence problem, when in actuality, we are just learning new things and growing and evolving all the time. It is not a confidence problem at all. It's that we are developing different capabilities, different skills, and learning. We don't have to feel confident at the beginning. And you can also just look back at all of the objective criteria that you have, all of the training that you have done. Notice who you were a year ago compared to who you are now. And that can be a beautiful way out of feeling not confident.